It's no secret to the world that the original Destiny in 2014 was a divisive game that buckled, somewhat, under the weight of its own ambitions. It wasn't until the hard truth of what really happened during its development became public, before gamers around the world truly turned against it. But regardless, like any video game, it built up a steady fan base that supported and defended it for the game that it ultimately turned into, and the expansions that improved and built the foundation of what the franchise was going to be from that point forward. When the sequel was officially revealed, along with the date of the beta, all eyes from the supporters to those that were disappointed were fixated to their screens with expectations and hopes of what Bungie learned from the original. Fast forward to today, the console beta has come and gone, and everyone has given their honest and not so honest opinions on the small snippet of content the beta contained, myself included with the contents of this video. Before we dive in, I would like to first preface this by saying that I'm well aware that my opinions and impressions are based off the beta code of Destiny 2, and that many praises, concerns, and questions may be resolved in some fashion by the time of the game's official release in September. Like many others, I too was disappointed in what the original Destiny offered. It was ambitious promises and failed execution from start to finish, so my thoughts and opinions here are coming from the other side of the spectrum. Take from that what you will. With all those disclaimers out of the way, let's talk about this beta. The beta for Destiny 2 wasted no time letting us once again pick between the same three classes as before: the Titan, Warlock, and Hunter. No option to customize, as we wouldn't be keeping these characters, obviously. We were thrown into a CG cutscene about the invasion of the Cabal and their attack on the last safe city on Earth, and the Tower, the social hub from the original game. Of course, showing the stable class leaders Zavala, Ikora, and Cayde as they prepare for the oncoming war with the Red Legion, which appears to be just one of many factions throughout the Cabal's army and is the focus of Destiny 2's story. The Homecoming mission throws you into firefight after firefight against formidable Cabal opponents with unique weaponry and different enemy types that weren't seen in the original game, showing once again that Destiny's gunplay is some of the best in the business. Enemies react to getting shot in a way that continues to feel satisfying even for an RPG. Sure, damage numbers pop out like you'd expect in any game about loot, rarity, and class variation, but Destiny's RPG mechanics have always been very simplistic, and that skill in PvE will get you farther than your ability to calculate and number crunch about your equipment and its stats. At least in the story missions anyways. In-game content such as raid prep will always be another story. But as I progressed further into the mission and took a step back from what I was actually doing in the game, I realized one thing. Everything I'm doing is exactly the same as in the original Destiny. Hell, I even released my Nolan bot to scan another terminal halfway through the mission. Something that was a major criticism for me about the previous game, and the bit of euphoria that I felt playing a brand new game waned just a bit, because it no longer felt like a brand new game. Even light score, which averages out based on the gear you have, is also back in this, and Bungie made it a case to start everyone in the beta at max level and 200 light. However, it is worth noting from the small taste of the game from the end of the Homecoming mission, I had a perfect idea of exactly what Destiny 2 is about. The leader of the Red Legion, Ghaul, wants the light of the Traveler for himself and steals it from the Guardians, rendering them powerless.
Guardian, something's wrong.
Simple, to the point, and to be honest, all the motivation I need. And a step in the right direction for a new game in the series. The second mission included in the beta was a strike called the Inverted Spire. And it plays, well, like a strike in Destiny. You're thrown in with two other players via matchmaking and work together to get from point A to point B, fighting waves of enemies along the way. They introduce a new enemy type within the Cabal's army, which are canine-like creatures that can swarm you in packs doing quick and harsh damage, if left to have their way with you. You then stumble upon a giant drill that poses an actual in-game hazard if you happen to get hit by one of the spinning coils that are drilling into the planet. The boss encountered at the end was a bit interesting in the sense of them applying some raid-like mechanics to it, but you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference between it and the Atheon from the Vault of Glass, design-wise. It's a standard Destiny gameplay 101, but these two missions gave us a taste of the campaign, so what about PvP? The previews leading up to the beta in regards to PvP has left many people torn in regards to the decision that was made. It's been reduced from 6v6 to 4v4, The main reason being that they wanted to feel more competitive and more personal. And it does, to an extent. The maps included were pretty small and fit for the smaller player size, which means that getting back into the fight was much quicker. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lost in the process of this change. And scale was the first thing that came to mind. But of course, with this only being the beta, it remains to be seen just how well this will translate into further game modes in the final release. If you were to ask me whether or not Destiny 2 seems like a step in making good on the promises of the original game, my answer would be a very confident and conclusive no. And at this point, it's way too late for them to ever do so. But it's been made clear from the game's reveal and future plans that Bungie is basically hitting the reset button on the franchise and are trying to show people what their new vision is for it, which is one of the reasons why I believe they made the decision not to carry our character levels and gear over from the first game, and even playing field for newcomers to the franchise. But they're also showing that they've learned a bit from the problems of the previous game, like a lack of a coherent story, which they start this one basically spoon-feeding you cutscene after cutscene in the beta alone. But all is not sunshine and roses based on what I've played. If you were to look at any of this footage and say, this looks just like the first game, then you'd be right. And it's one of the biggest issues that everyone on the internet has to say about it. Because so far, that's exactly what it is. More of the same. Even the most hardcore Destiny fans have admitted to this. And to them, more of the same is good since that's what they want at the end of the day. More Destiny. But also shows a problem of the level of content Bungie was willing to give us in this beta. Personally, I'm an advocate of less is more and the thrill of surprise, but when it comes to establishing the next step in your franchise and the reason why it should exist and why players should play it over the original, there wasn't even the slightest hint of that. And that's where I believe this beta fell short. Something that I also feel asks an important question about our industry that will have to be addressed in a future video. But until then, stay sharp, Assassins, and I'll see you next time.